After I bought her the car she wanted, she looked at the paperwork and said, "Good, this will be useful when I leave you." I looked her in the eye and said, "The paperwork will be?" "Yes." Then I showed her the fine print on the loan agreement I had her sign, making her 100% liable for all payments. The dealership repossessed the car in 3 months. So here's the thing about me. I'm a planner. I'm not exciting. I don't make spontaneous decisions. I'm the guy who has a 5-year financial plan, who contributes the maximum to his 401k, and who thinks a wild Friday night is getting a pizza and rebalancing my investment portfolio. I find comfort in stability. I spent my 20s living like a monk to save up and build a secure life for myself. My girlfriend Ashley was the complete opposite. She was all about the now. She lived for the brunch photo, the designer handbag, the weekend getaway. I thought we balanced each other out. I was the foundation, and she was the beautiful, exciting house being built on top of it. It's a nice thought, right? The problem is, I was the only one doing any of the building. We'd been together for 2 years, living in an apartment that I paid for. She worked part-time at a high-end clothing store, which was perfect for her, because it gave her a great discount and just enough money to fund her social life. I handled the rent, the bills, the future. I didn't mind, honestly. I loved her, and I thought we were a team heading in the same direction. I was just the one driving the bus while she was in the back, taking selfies. The trouble started with her car. Her old beater finally gave up the ghost, and suddenly getting a new car became her singular obsession. And she didn't just want a car. She wanted the car. A gleaming white luxury SUV with a panoramic sunroof and a price tag that made my eyes water. It was a car for a person with a 6-figure salary, not a part-time retail job. For months, it was all she talked about. She would leave browser tabs open on my laptop showing the car's specs. She would point them out on the street. "Isn't that our car, babe?" she'd say. It was never my car. It was always our car. I'm not a fool. I knew buying that car was a terrible financial decision, but she was relentless. It became the measure of my love for her. If I really loved her, I would find a way. If I didn't, I was being cheap and unsupportive. I was tired of the constant pressure, the subtle guilt trips, the pouting. So I finally gave in. But I wasn't going to do it stupidly. If she wanted to live the life of a high-earning adult, she was going to have to take on some of the responsibility. Her credit was terrible. A few maxed-out store cards and a history of late payments meant she couldn't get a loan for a toaster, let alone a $60,000 car. My credit, on the other hand, is pristine. This was the basis of my plan. I sat her down and laid out my proposal. "Okay, Ash," I said. "You want the car. I get it. Here's the deal. I will help you, but I'm not buying it for you. We will go to the dealership. I will put down a significant down payment to make the loan manageable. But the loan itself has to be in your name. You will be the sole borrower. You will be responsible for the monthly payments and the insurance." She looked at me, a little confused. "But I can't get a loan by myself. My credit isn't great." "I know," I said. "That's where the down payment comes in. I'll put down $20,000. That's a huge chunk of it. It will lower the amount you need to finance and will make the bank much more likely to approve you, even with your credit score. It's the only way this works." Her eyes lit up. All she heard was, $20,000, and you can get the car. She didn't care about the details. She just wanted the prize. She threw her arms around me, telling me I was the best boyfriend in the world. I just smiled. The plan was in motion. A few days later, we were at the dealership. The air smelled of new leather and desperation. Ashley was practically vibrating with excitement. I had already spoken with the finance manager, a guy named Dave, and had explained the situation. He was a straight shooter and seemed to appreciate the careful planning. When it came time to do the paperwork, Dave led us into his office. He had a mountain of forms on his desk. "Okay, folks," he said. "Standard procedure. Ashley, since you're the sole applicant for the loan, most of this is for you." He slid the main loan application over to her. She started signing away, her eyes glazed over with visions of her new sunroof. While she was occupied, I pulled a separate folder from my briefcase. "Ash," I said, pulling out a 2-page document. "This is just a simple agreement for us. My lawyer drafted it. It just formalizes that the $20,000 down payment I'm providing is a personal loan from me to you to be used for this car. It states that you're solely responsible for all payments and insurance, and that if we ever break up, the personal loan becomes due. It's just to protect my investment. Standard stuff." I handed her the document. She barely glanced at it. Her mind was already on the road. Yeah, okay, whatever you need," she said, scribbling her signature on the bottom without reading a single word of the fine print. I signed my own name, took my copy, and put it safely back in my briefcase. An hour later, we were driving home in her brand new, gleaming white SUV. She was ecstatic, taking videos for her Instagram story, playing with all the buttons. I was quiet. I felt a strange sense of calm. The trap had been set and baited. We got back to the apartment. She was on a high, running her hands over the leather seats, admiring her reflection in the shiny paint. She grabbed the folder with all the dealership paperwork. She was leafing through it, a huge, triumphant smile on her face. She looked at the main loan document, the one with her name and only her name listed as borrower. She looked up at me, her smile turning into a smug, condescending smirk. "Good," she said, tapping the paper. "This will be useful when I leave you." The words just hung there in the air. It wasn't a joke. It was a confession. It was a statement of intent. She thought she had just secured a massive asset, a luxury car that she believed I was ultimately on the hook for. She thought she had played me. I looked her straight in the eye. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't angry. I was just ready. "The paperwork will be..." "Yes," I said. I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out my copy of the other document. The one she hadn't read. "You should have read the fine print, Ashley," I said, handing it to her. "This is the agreement you signed. The one that makes you 100% liable for every single penny of this car, including the $20,000 personal loan from me that's due in full upon our separation. Which, by the way, just happened." I watched her read it. I watched the smug smirk melt off her face. I watched her eyes widen in horror as she realized what she had done. The beautiful new car in the driveway wasn't a prize, it was an anchor, and she had just willingly chained it to her own leg. Update 1. The immediate aftermath of the paperwork revelation was a scene of pure glorious chaos. Ashley's brain seemed to short-circuit. She went from triumphant queen to cornered animal in about 30 seconds. "What is this?" she stammered, shaking the paper at me. "This isn't legal. You tricked me." "Tricked you?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "I presented you with a document." I explained what it was. A personal loan agreement to protect my $20,000 investment. You signed it. A legal adult of sound mind and body, signing a contract. "It's the most legal thing in the world." She started screaming then. It was a torrent of accusations. I was a manipulative monster. I was a controlling psycho. I had planned this all along to trap her. I just stood there and let her burn herself out. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. There was no need. The signed document in her hand was my only defense, and it was impenetrable. When she finally ran out of insults, she switched to tears. The big, dramatic, crocodile tears that had always worked on me in the past. "How could you do this to me, Kevin?" she sobbed. "I thought you loved me." "I did," I said, and it was the truth. "But love requires respect, and you showed me exactly how much you respect me when you looked at that loan agreement and saw it as your exit strategy. You didn't see a future with me. You saw an asset you could take with you. I just made sure you'd be able to afford it." The crying stopped. The reality of her situation was beginning to crash down on her. The car payment was over $800 a month. The insurance for a new luxury vehicle with a driver who had her credit history was another $400. That was $1,200 a month. Her take-home pay from her part-time job was barely $1,500. And that didn't even include the $20,000 personal loan she now owed me. She spent the rest of the night making frantic phone calls. First, she called the dealership. The finance manager, Dave, patiently explained to her that the deal was done, the contracts were signed, and the car was legally hers. Then she called the bank. They told her the same thing. The loan was approved, it was in her name, and her first payment was due in 30 days. The next day, she tried a new tactic. She called her parents. I was in the other room, packing my things, but I could hear her side of the conversation. She was spinning a wild tale of how I had forced her to buy a car, how I had trapped her in debt, how I was trying to ruin her life. I decided to preempt the inevitable angry phone call from her father. I found his email address and sent him a short, professional message. "Mr. Henderson," I wrote, "I'm sure you're hearing a very dramatic version of events from Ashley right now. I just wanted to provide you with the facts. Ashley desperately wanted a car that was beyond her financial means. I agreed to help by providing a substantial down payment. In order to protect that investment, I had a standard personal loan agreement drafted, which she reviewed and signed. The car loan from the bank is solely in her name, as she also agreed. Yesterday, immediately after the purchase, she informed me that she saw the car as an asset she could use when she eventually left me. I have therefore ended the relationship. I've attached a copy of the personal loan agreement she signed for your review. I am sorry that it has come to this." I attached the scanned PDF of the agreement. I knew her father was a small business owner. He understood contracts. He understood liability. I never got a call from him. But about an hour later, I heard Ashley screaming into her phone again. "What do you mean you're not going to help me? Dad, he tricked me. It's not my fault." It seemed her last line of defense had crumbled. I finished packing my personal belongings. I had already found a new apartment to move into. I wasn't going to kick her out of the one we shared. That would be too messy. Instead, I was just going to leave. But not before making one last logistical change. I called the utility companies and the internet provider. I informed them that I was moving out and that I was terminating my accounts. If Ashley wanted to have electricity, water, or Wi-Fi, she would have to apply for them herself, with her own credit score. I left that evening. I left her a note on the counter with a copy of the signed agreement and a payment schedule for the $20,000 she owed me. As I walked out of the apartment for the last time, I took a look at the gleaming white SUV in the parking lot. It looked like a monument to bad decisions, and it was all hers. Update 2. It's been 2 months since I walked out of that apartment and left Ashley to her new life of financial responsibility. The silence from her has been deafening, but the information that has trickled back to me through mutual acquaintances has been nothing short of spectacular. The first month was, by all accounts, a state of total denial for her. She kept driving the car. She kept posting pictures of it on Instagram. She was trying to project an image of a successful, independent woman who was thriving after her breakup. But behind the scenes, the financial reality was setting in. The first car payment was due. She apparently called me from a blocked number, leaving a tearful, rambling voicemail begging me to just make this one payment for her, promising she would figure it out after that. I deleted the message without a second thought. She missed the payment. Then the other bills started to pile up. The apartment she was living in was now solely her responsibility. The rent was due. The new utility accounts she had to set up, with her bad credit, required hefty security deposits that she didn't have. She was drowning. She tried to sell the car, but she was already underwater on the loan. The car had depreciated the second she drove it off the lot. She owed the bank far more than any dealership would offer her for it. Selling it would mean writing a massive check she couldn't cash. She was trapped. The smear campaign I had expected was short-lived and ineffective. She told her friends that I was a monster who had saddled her with debt. But her story had a fatal flaw. She was still driving the $60,000 car. It's hard to play the victim when you're cruising around in a luxury SUV. A few of our mutual friends actually reached out to me, and I calmly explained the situation, even showing one of them a copy of the agreement she had signed. The narrative quickly shifted from, he trapped her, to she made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. The best part came from her parents. Her mother apparently called my mother to try and plead her daughter's case. My mom, who is a sweet woman but has a spine of steel, listened patiently and then said, "It sounds to me like your daughter tried to take advantage of my son's kindness, and for the first time in her life, it didn't work. This is not his problem to solve." The conversation ended there. The second car payment was due. She missed that one too. The bank's calls became relentless. The letters started turning from friendly reminders to stern warnings. Her credit score, already in the gutter, was now in the sewer. The shiny car was no longer a status symbol. It was a source of constant, crippling anxiety. She stopped driving it as much, likely because she couldn't afford the gas. The Instagram posts stopped. The facade was crumbling. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I felt a profound sense of relief. Every late payment notice she received was a consequence of her own words, her own intentions. She had looked at my kindness and seen a weakness to be exploited. She had looked at a partnership and seen a payday. I hadn't trapped her. I had simply handed her the bill for her own character. Final update. The end of the story came exactly 93 days after I drove away from our old apartment. It came, as I knew it would, in the form of a tow truck. A friend of mine who lived in the same apartment complex as Ashley sent me a text on a Tuesday morning. It was a picture. It showed the gleaming white SUV being hooked up to a tow truck, its front wheels lifted ignominiously off the ground. The caption on the text was simple: "Justice is served." After 3 missed payments, the bank had finally initiated the repossession. The symbol of her arrogance and deceit was being unceremoniously hauled away in the middle of the day for all her neighbors to see. The financial fallout for her has been catastrophic. A repossession is one of the most damaging things that can happen to a credit report. It's a bright red flag that screams financial irresponsibility. She won't be able to get a loan for anything for the next 7 to 10 years. And it gets worse. The bank will sell the car at auction for a fraction of what she owes. They will then sue her for the difference, the deficiency balance, which will likely be in the tens of thousands of dollars. On top of that, she still owes me the $20,000 for the down payment, a debt which my lawyer has already sent a formal demand letter for. She is financially ruined. A hole so deep it will take her a decade to climb out of, if she ever does. I heard she had to abandon the apartment. She couldn't afford it. She broke the lease, which incurred even more fees and penalties. She lost her job at the boutique because her life was too chaotic. She moved back in with her parents, a woman in her late 20s with no car, no job, no savings, and a credit score in the toilet. My life, on the other hand, has been peaceful. I moved into a new place that is entirely my own. I've been focusing on my work and my investments. The $20,000 I put down on that car is a sunk cost, a lesson learned. But it was the best money I ever spent. It was the price of my freedom. It was the cost of extracting a toxic user from my life before she could do any more damage. She looked at the paperwork for a luxury car and saw a tool she could use to leave me. I looked at the same situation and saw an opportunity to teach her a lesson about responsibility. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I just used a contract. I used the cold hard logic of finance to protect myself. She thought she was playing a game of hearts, but I was playing chess. And the final move was checkmate. The paperwork was useful, just not in the way she had planned.